You are listening to the Necropolis podcast, which is brought to you by Jason from Goatcraft and Shelly from HateMeditations.com and Metal Legion magazine. 1993 CE Black Metal releases ranked. Yes, you heard correctly. We are discussing 1993 Black Metal releases. Being that there weren't a lot of wonderful full lengths released in 1993, we did kind of break a couple of rules, and we included some EPs, and I just threw a demo in here, technically a demo, but a lot of people say it's a full length for that Graveland and the glare of burning churches. But anyway, since the year is coming towards an end here, Christmas here is here, and to celebrate, Jesus Christ and his birthday, it's time to, get into that black metal, the most blasphemous type of extreme metal out there. So we do have the usual crew here, plus a leprechaun. So we do have Shelly from HateMeditations.com and Metal Legion magazine. Thank you, Mr. Shelly.
Thank you, Jason. It's great to be here to chat black metal.
1993 CE black metal at that. Tyler, welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much for having me back to discuss 1993 CE black metal
releases. Yes, sir. And one of my friends, he listened to Tyler, and he was really into your takes on things. I'm like, man, this Tyler guy is a true nerd. And then the other day on Facebook, he posted a picture of you and your friends playing like board games. And I'm like, yep, there he is. So
yeah, 100% nerd here.
Yep,
for sure.
Got the nerd in here, and death and black metal nerd, if there is such a thing. It might be that Tyler guy, and it's definitely a big nerd level expert here. And I'm not saying nerd in a defamatory way or anything like that. Just like this guy knows his stuff, he's really into it, and girls have cooties. So I do want to.
I'm married, dude. I don't think girls have cooties.
I'm joking, Tyler. I'm joking. But we have the Bathiok or Bathiok, and a guy from Ireland that's been on this podcast before. And last week we had or 2 episodes ago actually, we had ranked one of his new releases for like the top 2023 albums. I thought it was pretty average, so C territory. So C these days is like an A. So we have to use the grade curve on that a little bit to, because there's so much bad metal being released nowadays. But thank you for coming on, Mr. Leprechaun.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for C, I guess. I'll take it.
I think Shelly gave you a B, so that kind of averages out to.
You'll always be A or B for me.
Oh, so I do have to apologize to the Leprechaun today because I was mistaken on his episode where we ranked his album. I said he was an NRA, and he's in Ireland. Obviously, he's not an NRA because that's the National Rifle Association, and which is based in America. But then I realized, no, I meant the IRA because I thought he was an IRA, which is the Irish Republican Army. And well, it turns out I get my mix confused, and it was a different Irish guy. He told me he was an IRA. So I do want to say that the Bathiok or Bayok guy is not in the IRA 100%. He does not blow up cars for political reasons. So I just want to clear that air that his hands are clean. So the Irish government should not go after him for any reason other than perhaps creating some off-kilter metal. But anyway, we have gone on too long with this introduction bit of the episode. So first up, we do have the Beherit drawing down the moon. Beherit. Obviously, I'm a little biased with Beherit because I know Mark Aleja, been to his house and recorded music with him. And when I was a teenager, I discovered Drawing Down the Moon. And that was back when I played guitar. And I used to, cover songs like The Gate of Nana and all that. And I even told him that too. I'm like, Marco's like not the most complex riff, so I was able to learn it, on guitar pretty easily. And he agreed with me and all that. And we had some beers, and we talked about Blasphemy not putting out any records, in the past 2 decades and all that, 3 decades. But yeah, Drawing Down the Moon. A lot of people say this is like the scariest like vocal performance ever in black metal, and I can see why, because Marco got really creative with his vocalizations on here. He goes from whispers to the most terrifying types of black metal vocalizations imaginable, and he sounds like a fucking demon. And the way the vocals mesh with the rather primitive guitars is a great synthesis. I know we have Mystifier on here, but Mystifier is also part of like that Brazilian like sarcophago kind of school of extreme metal, and he was really influenced by that as well. And that comes out on this album a little bit. It's a little bit more stripped down than Sarcophago and Mystifier, but that primitive type of sheer terror that is very intuitive too. I know we use that word a lot, intuitive, to describe a music that may be like simplistic, but the way it's constructed is very flowing and sounds very natural. He has a good head on his shoulders where it comes to constructing songs, even if they are made of sparse pieces. Like at one point, he's just holding down one key on a keyboard forever, and elements like that really, if it's pulled off the right way, it can be very, very compelling music. And Mr. Marco, he did succeed, and I do believe it's an S-tier album for Drawing Down the Moon. I'm not saying that because I'm biased, because I know the guy, but I've always loved this album ever since I was a teenager. Go ahead, Shelley.
I forgot to say before the episode, go to Tyler first and do me last, just to mix up the format.
All right, Shelley wants to be done last. Go ahead, Tyler.
All right. Well, I agree that this album is an S tier. One of my favorite albums of all time. Listen to it very regularly. The Beherit album I listen to the most, even though I like many other albums in their discography. It's amazing how it really does a good job of, kind of as Jason was saying, stripping everything down to a sort of primal level to create these wonderful little mind viruses. In a way, it almost, and I know this is a phrase that's tossed around by metal a lot, or about metal a lot, I should say. It almost becomes more ambient music than music in the traditional sense, as much of metal is, in that it kind of maintains an atmosphere and then manipulates the atmosphere subtly to create a sense of oftentimes vast change. There's awesome moments of it kind of decaying into something that's almost just noise and texture, and then allowing themes to emerge from that texture. It's a wonderful experience of being transported to a weird and, as Jason said, kind of terrifying landscape. Excellent album, one of the best in the entire heavy metal genre, in my opinion.
All right, Leprechaun.
Well, first of all, thanks for clarifying for any feds or MI5 or anyone listening of any kind of, police bent, that I am definitely not a member of any prescribed organizations. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, no problem. I don't want you to get thrown in jail.
Yeah, it'd be nice not to have my
because I
door
was
kicked in.
mistaken.
It's all good. All good. So, I mean, there's not much to say, really. It is S tier, isn't it? That's as simple as that. I actually hadn't listened to it for a few years, I think, but I re-listened to it recently. Didn't know how I'd feel about it because my tastes have kind of shifted a little bit, because it is quite chaotic and, the playing is very rough. But realistically, if you wanted to show someone what black metal was in essence, this would be one of the albums you'd have to show them.
Shelley, go ahead.
Yeah. Obviously it's going to be S tier for me as well. Aside from what everyone's already sort of pointed out, I really like the alternative take on black metal that it offers to what the Norwegian artists were doing, in that he creates an atmosphere every bit as elegantly simple and immersive as what Burzum was doing, but comes at it from a completely different angle, a lot more surrealist, a lot more almost abstract in a way, and in many respects a hell of a lot darker, as you've already pointed out as well. It's quite a frightening album at times, but it kind of presents a alternative vocabulary, I suppose, one that's one that sort of pulls you in the exact same way, but just takes you to a very different place, a much more kind of bizarre, sort of uncanny realm, to the sort of frigid, cold, like explicitly kind of naturalist themes that the Norwegian artists were going for. So yeah, it's a fluke stroke of genius. It's a very strange and weird album, and yeah, it's remained in regular rotation for me for a very long time. So yeah, absolutely S tier.
I don't think it's a fluke. I think this is, just Marco is
No, I did mean fluke
naturally
for Beherit
inclined.
because he's capable of like he's proved throughout his discography. I mean, we've discussed his non-metal albums on here as well, and no, he's a very unique musical artist. I didn't mean fluke for Beherit. I more just meant it's kind of like a freak of nature, this album, in terms of like the canon of classic black metal. It just stands out as one of these really oddball releases. Yeah, fluke was probably the wrong word there, but
All right, so unanimous decision on that Beherit. So next up is Immortal Pure Holocaust. I go through periods where, when it comes to Norwegian black metal, I have three bands that I consider the best, and it depends on my mood and where I'm at mentally of which one is like my favorite at a point in time. It's, there's that Burzum guy, there's the Emperor, and there's the Immortal. I view them as the Norwegian Trinity, and Pure Holocaust is one of the reasons why I love Immortal so much. So when it even comes to like Norwegian black metal, Immortal had a different take on it. The Emperor went more of a symphonic route. The Burzum and Darkthrone was very stripped down, intuitive music, whereas the Immortal, they went for heady, very abstract, a lot of riffage in the black metal. And this album has some of my favorite Immortal songs ever, like Unsilenced Storms in Northern Abyss. Anyway, it's like, I'm a demon with a shadow face. And I love that part so much. Um and there's so many great riffs, and they're very complex riffs, comparatively speaking, for black metal. They're like death metal tier complex, but completely black metal. So, and there's like an off-kilter nature to some of them. It's just very striking the way some of these riffs are formed and how they flow into each other. And nothing stays around too long. It's all very concise. And it's like, here's the idea, here's where the idea goes to, and then here's where the conclusion is. And the way the riff craft is fucking amazing. And of course, Abbott with the Popeye vocals is no better than that for this period of Norwegian black metal. I love it. And yeah, complete S for me. Timeless classic. Go ahead, Tyler. Tyler, are you there?
I thought I hit the mute button and I didn't hit the mute button. Anyway, for a very long time, this was my favorite Immortal record. Nowadays, I listen to Diabolical Full Moon Mysticism a little more, but that doesn't mean that I think that this record is lesser in quality by any extent of the imagination. It's an amazing piece of black metal. As Jason pointed out, there is kind of a use of somewhat death metal riffing, but the manner in which they're used is entirely within a black metal context. This album has a really developed an awesome sense of streaming melody. The use of oblique motion that they have on this album, which is a technique that's used in many other black metal bands, but on this album is really cool, really awesome riffs that they develop out of that, like in the song that Jason brought up, Unsilenced Storms in the North Abyss. Another really good a really good example of that. The Sun No Longer Rises has a really awesome example of that as well as in a really interesting, almost major key melody, which is really unique and awesome for a black metal band. But this album really kind of has a amp up in aggression from the debut. It kind of just flows from beginning to end in this sort of almost like sense of being thrown into a battle. And I think that it really explored some areas of harmony that no other black metal band or really heavy metal band ever pursued after this album, which is unfortunate. It opened up a new frontier that was never really followed up on. I would definitely give it an S tier.
Yeah, when it comes to like the Norwegian Trinity, I was talking about, Emperor and Burzum have been mimicked a lot, but Immortal's hardly ever mimicked. There's, I guess, Darkthrone's probably, mimicked the most because the bar is so low when it comes to the technical ability to, create a lot of the vibes and whatnot that Darkthrone has. But when it comes to Immortal, like there's like Hate Force that kind of has like an Immortal vibe here and there, but
I'd say this
definitely,
era of Immortal, just to clarify, I think the later melodic thrash stuff has been imitated quite a lot, but
let's not talk about anything like at the heart of winter. I don't view
oh,
that
that's not canon, is it?
No, that's not Jason Cannon. But go ahead, Leprechaun. Talk about that Immortal.
Jason, Beherit.
Beherit.
Perfect.
He said I could call him Leprechaun, and that's easier.
I do not
to say than
recall saying
Beherit.
that. My people may be of short stature. We may have ginger beards, but leprechaun is a racial epithet, and I take exception to that. Big Ara.
Beherit.
Perfect. Gurav Maigat. I've been sitting here trying to think of something bad to say about Pure Holocaust, quite frankly. Try and find something to critique it. I can say that Immortal, I guess, in totality, sort of descended into self-parody, really. And you could say if your introduction to Immortal was something like the Call of the Winter Moon video before Pure Holocaust, you could still view them as being a bit of a joke band. But it seems like in this moment on this album, it just that sense of it being self-parodying or too self-aware disappeared, really. So musically and conceptually, I think they nail it at this moment, and there's no it's not too self-conscious, not too self-parodying. So I think it's hard to argue that this isn't an S tier album, really.
Yeah, there's no crab walking in this album. Well, go ahead, Mr. Shelley.
Yeah, you kind of anticipated what I was going to say then, in that I like Immortal. I even have a space in my heart for At the Heart of Winter. But and I'm a big sort of fan of rehabilitating Blizzard Beasts. I think that's got some really like quality moments on it.
Blizzard Beast is one of my favorite albums ever.
Blizzard Beast
It's one of my favorite death metal albums.
Well, I think it's overlooked because it's kind of considered, that difficult transitional album. But I agree. It's a fantastic album. It's got some weaknesses, but a lot of people kind of overlook it. But what I was leading to there was kind of agreeing with Beherit in that Pure Holocaust is the only Immortal album I can actually take seriously. I love Battles in the North. I love Diabolical Full Moon Mysticism, but this is the only album where they really kind of just set aside all of the like tomfoolery and the nods and winks to the audience and said, no, we're going to make a very serious artistic statement that is both technically proficient, very, very efficient in terms of its delivery. It's a very short album, doesn't fuck around, no intros, no ambient interludes or anything like that. And it's just packed full of very, very, as Tyler's mentioned as well, very unusual riffs for the black metal setting. Very unique kind of approach to melody and harmony and progressing those things throughout a song. And it does it in such an efficient, lean kind of way. There's no filler, no room for building to a moment of like profundity. They just kind of blast through it in this almost like a stream of conscience kind of way. It's very, very compelling. So yeah, for that, it's a very special album for me. It's always been my favorite of Immortals, and yeah, definitely belongs in the S tier.
All right, wow. So the first two are unanimous S tiers, that Beherit and that Immortal. And I apologize if you hear me opening a beer here, but it's very important that I get a little lubricated here just to kind of flow with this black metal here during this Christmas season. Next up is that Burzum guy, the Aske EP. Honestly, I did not do my homework before this episode. I've heard this EP quite a bit in the past, but honestly, it's been about 15 years. But judging by my memory of it, it's kind of like a proto Burzum expression. He was kind of getting together different, flavors that he would later create and mold into very profound statements. But what's presented here is still good. It's not bad. And it's not really something that I ever feel compelled to revisit now that I'm older. But being that I have listened to it quite a bit in the past, I would put it above average. In B territory, I know we have another Burzum on here. I place the other Burzum higher. So just because I am going to be placing that other Burzum higher, I am going to put it as a B. For this EP, the Ask EP. Go ahead, Mr. Tyler.
This album, this EP is difficult for me to rate in isolation apart from their debut because it was later re-released along with the debut with the tracks packaged at the end, and that's mostly how I listened to it. I just listened to the re-release with the debut album tracks as well as the EP. And
Same.
Right. And to me, it's pretty much a continuation of the style on the debut. You do hear some movements towards even what he was later going to do on V.I.T.R.I.O.L. In some ways, the second album is a slight detour. In that the second album kind of makes use of shorter ambient loops, whereas this EP, as well as tracks from the first album, have a bit more of the lengthy droning melodies. I think especially on the EP with, if I'm not mistaken, tracks like the Stemmen fra Tarnet, if I pronounce that right, makes use of some droning riffs that are almost reminiscent of the third album. But I really appreciate the material from this EP. I really appreciate the first album and the EP quite a bit because it has some of the more narrative song structure as opposed to kind of the more shorter ambient song structures of the second album, which is still great. We'll talk about that in just a moment. So I would actually put this album as an A, or this EP, I suppose I should say, as an A.
All right, Beherit.
I think I would go B as well. It's short. There's some stylistic advancement from the first album. The production is quite nice, very washed out, but it's short and it's not especially significant if you're trying to explain to somebody new to black metal what are significant albums to look into. So B, I guess.
All right.
Not much to say about it.
And I know Burzum is Shelley's favorite band, so go ahead, Shelley.
Well, yeah, I am going to be the dissenting voice here. I would place it as an A. As I think Tyler's already alluded to it half is to be treated as a transition into the later, more explicitly ambient black metal that he would move into. But yeah, you've got tracks like A Lost Forgotten Sad Spirit, where it's a much longer track to the material on the debut, and it's really exploring the specific approach to narrative that Varg would take, in that he kind of almost takes a piss with how much he gets out of a single riff or a single theme, to the point where it's kind of almost meditative in a way. It's something that he has in kinship with Iljan, in that it's just driving home the most basic chord progression until it becomes something, it goes through the kind of wall of tedium and becomes something profound again. And meditation is probably the appropriate term there. But it also, the first two tracks, they call back to the debut as well, in that they're much more, the themes and the riffs are much more kind of exist in microcosm. They're drawn out over a fairly extended period, but they kind of resolve much, much quicker. And they have this sort of trance-like kind of repetition to them, but in a kind of frenetic, almost like a frantic kind of way. And then you've got the middle track, which is him kind of exploring how to do ambience with guitar noise and a bit of sort of vocal dramatization as well. So it's like all of the elements of this period of Burzum that I absolutely adore, just packaged in, a neat little EP. So yeah, totally an A for me. I can't put it up there pure Holocaust, but yeah.
I can't believe I'm on the side of Ireland today with judging it as a B, and 2 B's and 2 A's equals between an A and a B. So I went ahead and go ahead and rank that Burzum, Detsum, engang, V.I.T.R.I.O.L. When I was younger, when I'm talking like 17, 18, this was my Burzum album. I had listened to this on repeat over and over and over. And I feel there is like an ounce of like sorrow and loss in it. That kind of encaptured like when I was younger and not in the best of moods, like this album kind of resonated with me. And very, the long form of Burzum is here. And like we chatted about V.I.T.R.I.O.L or whatever, however you pronounce that, and I agree that's the best Burzum. This is a very close second. The reason why I didn't put it as an S is between an S and an A is because I've grown older and I realized like this isn't the best statement of Burzum, but it's up there. It's definitely a solid fucking album. And especially looking at the Beherit and the Immortal there in S tier, I think it's a little bit less great, but still fucking phenomenal. But yeah, this is when I was in a bad mood, I would put on this album, just kind of just mellow in that bad mood and just, soak up the atmosphere and, just be in a terrible mood. But go ahead, Tyler.
So if we were talking about the debut album, when we were discussing the Aske EP, I would put it as an S. And this album, I would actually put as an A for a reason I slightly touched on when discussing the Aske EP, which is that I actually think that this is somewhat of a detour, slightly, in the development of Burzum's music. And I'm not saying that to denigrate the album too severely, because it's still a great black metal album. But I feel like on the debut album, where you have more narrative pieces, especially with the first track, Feeble Screams from Forest Unknown, and the track My Journey to the Stars, this album kind of backs away from that narrative approach that they then bring back on V.I.T.R.I.O.L. It kind of replaces those longer narrative songs with a, as I said just earlier, kind of ambient loops, and as opposed to sort of telling a story, so to speak. This album kind of builds an atmosphere or a mood of sorts, and then manipulates it or massages it throughout the piece. And in that regard, it does it very well, and it does it a lot better than other black metal albums that attempt the same. But it relies on a lot of harmonic technique, which they did incorporate into the next album. So the next album kind of also developed on some techniques that were explored on this one. But yeah, this was also a favorite of mine when I was a teenager. Probably the Burzum album I listened to the most, even though if you would have asked me at the time, I would have told you that V.I.T.R.I.O.L is the best. I still feel V.I.T.R.I.O.L is the best, and it's one of the ones that I listen to, that I have the most liking for, apart from their debut album. But yeah, I would probably put this album as an A.
Yeah. All right. Beherit.
Have to agree with Jason again, really. Tempted to
Oh,
say
fuck,
S,
it's
but
fucking Texas and Ireland today. We're comrades.
I know.
Get this.
What can I say?
Lucky Charms.
It's the alliance of perfect taste. That's what it is. Yeah, it's funnily enough, for pretty much the same reasons as yourself as well. When I was younger, this hit a nerve as a moody teenager. This was the one that really got me into Burzum. I think for the first album, I think I would disagree a little bit maybe with Tyler. I think other than My Journey to the Stars, the songs tend to be on a simpler structure perhaps than some of this album. I think My Journey to the Stars on the first album stands out as being something a bit more ambitious structurally. But I think something like Key to the Gate has a structural cohesiveness to it that I don't think is there for most of the first album. And that combined with the vocals being a touch less annoying on re-listen, you know, the older I've gotten, the less into that overly dramatic vocal style, I think, of early Burzum I am. So I would rate it still very, very highly, but maybe just a tiny notch below those two we've rated S tier so far.
So it's going to be S for me all the way. I mean, probably no surprises there, but the reason is kind of what you guys are alluding to as a weakness is what I see as its greatest strength in that it is different. It is a deviation in the sort of trajectory of Burzum at this time, but it's also Varg kind of proving that he was able to write in slightly shorter form and slightly more focused form than V.I.T.R.I.O.L, which is it's a very tight, perfectly balanced album, but obviously it's only 4 tracks and all of them are about they're upwards of 10, 15 minutes long, whereas this is very efficient with its use of time. I think Key to the Gate is possibly one of my favorite metal tracks ever. I think it's one of the most perfectly developed kind of examples of how to develop a theme through cyclical riffcraft and subtle layers of harmony. I think Lost Wisdom is equally elegant in the fact that it is maybe made up of about 3 parts, maybe 4, but what it does with them for just the most basic technique of a tempo change and an addition of a basic harmonic lead is just completely profound. But you do get the sort of longer form ambient Burzum stretching out towards the end as well. And I think it just shows that one of the things that makes Burzum so special is that they weren't a one-trick pony, or they weren't kind of easily like compartmentalized into one thing. We talk about the Darkthrone style or the Emperor style or the Immortal style. Burzum had a very clear style, but he was capable of reaching beyond that and still creating something that was so obviously Burzum. And that's just one of the reasons why he's such a special artist in the canon of black metal. So yeah, absolutely S tier for me.
All right, so that averages out between an S and an A. So next up is that Darkthrone. What if we kissed under a funeral moon? Blushing over here, wanting to kiss under that funeral moon. But I know I have been joking around saying that Darkthrone's for girls, and when I say that, I'm more talking about the.
When you say that, you need to meet more women.
Well, when I'm saying that, I mean more of the Transylvanian hunger, Darkthrone.
I'd like to meet more of these women. Where are they?
Dude, I have seen so many women wear Darkthrone shirts to metal shows, like vastly more than men wearing Darkthrone shirts. There's something about Darkthrone that women feel more attached to it than men do. I mean, obviously we're men talking about Under a Funeral Moon, but yeah, I revisited this album. I'll be honest. I think Soulside Journey is S tier death metal album, and it is my favorite by Darkthrone. But for black metal Darkthrone, granted, I've been into black metal since teenager and all that, and this is one of the bands that I got into at the time. And but this one actually has the songs I really like a lot. There's obviously a big Celtic Frost influence in there. There's a lot of great riffcraft, and there's a lot of off kilter. It's not just like a Transylvanian Hunger where there's kind of vibing through the texture. No, there's some really great songs on this album, and I do love it immensely. Do I love it as much as that Immortal? No, I do not. Pure Holocaust is fucking phenomenal for Norwegian black metal. This is kind of up there, but not quite. But yeah, Tyler, what if we kissed under a funeral moon?
If we kissed under a funeral moon, I think
Your wife would get upset, right?
yeah, she would, and yeah, she would also want. Yeah, it would be really confusing for her. I think that would make us gay, and nothing wrong with that, but I'm not into it. Anyhow,
Transylvanian hunger indeed.
yes, a certain, definitely a certain
A
kind
lot of emphasis on the transsexual hunger.
Oh my God. All
If you
right.
grunt like Tom G. Wario whilst doing it, it's not gay.
Oh, I
But
didn't realize that. That's part of,
So
those are the
that just
rules.
shows,
Okay.
yeah, that's the rules.
All right. Moving on. I'm with Jason. This is my favorite Darkthrone album. I would
So
give it.
you're with me. So we are gonna kiss under a funeral moon. I'm joking. Go ahead, Tyler.
How many beers have you had, mate?
5.
5. Holy crap. All right.
Started at 10 a.m. I started breaking the noon rule because of the podcast, so I'm like, fuck it. But
So yeah, favorite Darkthrone album. I would probably put it between an S and an A. I actually like it a little more than Pure Holocaust. Maybe not as much as Diabolical Full Moon Mysticism, but a little more than Pure Holocaust. But there's some other black metal albums that I listen to more. This album, it really kind of in some areas, like the opening riff to Natasha and Eternal Sleep, verges on atonal riffing, but is able to unite it to the song structure through utilizing the patterns within that riffing and developing them throughout the course of the piece. It's definitely got a lot of aggressive and harsh and quick-footed guitar tempos. But what really, to me, sets this album above Transylvanian Hunger is that it has so much more variety to it. Transylvanian Hunger is good. I do like that album. But this album has a much more of a sense of development to it, much more interesting, and to use the phrase that Shelley has always been really fond of, kind of like wildcat sense of innovation with just the strangeness that they're able to incorporate that makes you wonder where they were able to come up with something like that. There's lots of excellent death metal that's really powerful, really some of the best music you've ever heard that never manages to put a riff in there that's good, but also makes you wonder, wow, how did they write something like that? Morbid Angel is an example of a death metal album that accomplishes that on Blessed Are the Sick, but they're kind of a rare exception. So yeah, Under a Funeral Moon is an awesome album for Darkthrone's black metal period. Like Jason, favorite Darkthrone album is Soulside Journey. But if you're gonna ask me about black metal Darkthrone, this is where it's at.
yeah, I agree. I'm glad I revisited it. Because honestly, Darkthrone has just been getting on my nerves, especially with their later output. But I'm glad I revisited this album and just reconnected with it and was like, yeah, that's fucking good shit. All right, Beherit. What if we kissed under a funeral moon and went ooh or
We're
oh?
definitely gonna kiss. We're definitely gonna kiss because it's another S tier. It's
So you think it's S
it's
tier,
on.
right?
It's on. Yeah. No, I think Darkthrone were on a tear, probably like no other band at this time. Everything up to and including Panzerfaust was amazing, and even the little weird side projects, most of them have something interesting about them. So, but I would say maybe that when I first heard this album in the context of the albums from that era of Darkthrone, I didn't get this one. I thought the production kind of obscured your ability to understand the
I think
harmony
the
and get
production
it.
helps it now. Yeah.
Yeah, later on, I kind of took me a while to warm to it, but I think actually it's the strongest purposeful atmosphere I think they've built. Like if anything, although people might say that about Transylvanian Hunger, the rawness of that production probably obscures the music a little bit more than this does. But again, I would just say it's an S tier. It's another album that if you wanted to show someone archetypal black metal, this would be one of the ones you'd have to show them.
Okie doke, Mr. Shelley.
So I am again going to be the dissenting voice. I think all three of the classic Darkthrone black metal trilogy belong in the top tiers. This is my least favorite of the three, though. The reason being, A Blaze in the Northern Sky is quite a quirky album. It's very early in the kind of the chronology of second wave black metal, but there's still a lot of holdover from Soulside Journey. So you kind of get Soulside Journey style riffs played in a black metal setting with this really kind of weird sense of theatre going on as well. And that's one of the reasons why I really love that album. Transylvanian Hunger, as we discussed on our 94 episode, I really like the fact that there's no variety, no variation, and total monotony. The fact that it is one of the most imitated albums in black metal has like soured it a little bit, but I can't really hold the album itself responsible for that. And I kind of see this one as sitting somewhere in the middle. It's still like an absolutely seminal black metal album. Don't get me wrong. Many riffs on here that I absolutely adore. I really love the fact that they were crafting their own vocabulary at the same time as kind of aping Celtic Frost and sort of explicitly moving away from their death metal roots into creating the language of what black metal would be after this point, and you can kind of see that process happening in real time almost. But for me, it lacks the quirky kind of freedom of A Blazing Northern Sky, and it doesn't quite take on the profound like monotony and atmosphere of Transylvanian Hunger. So for me, it's kind of always sat in the middle as just a little bit worse of both worlds. But it being, Darkthrone, as Beherit said, in their stride, it still belongs at least in A tier as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I don't rate it quite as highly as the rest of you.
All right, so I think it stays there between S and an A. I thought Shelly was going to go for a fucking S tier on that, and I was completely wrong. All right, so all right,
Oh, here we go. Where's this going to go?
time to rabble rouse.
Oh,
That's what you see after we kiss under a funeral moon. Oh, Jason, you cut deep. All right, sink your teeth into that. That is a D ranking for Dissection, the Somberlain. Look at, I am fed up with this band. Yes, I liked them when I was really young, but as I got older and more discerned, I have become really not a fan of Dissection at all, and I just view it as heavy metal, very melodic heavy metal, and not block metal at all. I do not think this is a block metal album. A lot of people say they're like one of the best block metal bands ever, but this is okay. Maybe it's between a C and a D because I looked at we have the Marduk coming up, and that's firmly in D territory. But yeah, I'll put it slightly above the Marduk because at least John Nordved or Nedved or whatever his name was, the guy who was one of those cosmic Satanists, guys. Yeah, at least knew how to write like a heavy metal song. Yeah, but no, it does nothing for me. If I wanted to listen to like really melodic music that's sophisticated, again, I always say it's like let's go to fucking classical music. That's where it's at. And I don't like any like high musicianship, high-minded, elevating metal beyond metal into like pretty forms or anything like that. So yeah, I put it a little bit below average. Go ahead, Tyler.
Oh man, I mean, come on. This is the good Dissection album. I would at least give it a B. It definitely is much more heavy metal in spirit than black metal, I would say. But even more so than a lot of death metal bands, which tend to have, and I'm not talking about good death metal, but a large portion, probably the majority of the death metal genre, even at the time, had really basic, really boring, repetitive up down patterns of motion, which Dissection manages to rise above here. They incorporate some good long flowing melodic riffs. It does kind of like all of Dissection, although it would become much worse later on, become too conventional kind of rock and roll music. But it's not disturbingly obvious on this one, and it's not half-hearted either, like a lot of other bands in that kind of utilize this style, except for maybe within different genres like the dreaded melodic death metal. So even though it's a bit incongruous, and there's some rock techniques that are used within the album, I still think it's a fairly solid album for what it is. I wouldn't even necessarily give it a C, but that's just in context of the overall metal canon and some other records that I would give a C, which is usually a ranking that I
We're
reserve
working
for.
black metal today, Tyler.
Yeah, well, even in black metal, C is generally my ranking for doesn't offend me, but I have no desire to listen to. You know what? I don't mind listening to the Somberlain every once in a while. It can be an enjoyable listen on a rare occasion. So yeah, I'd give it a B.
All right, all right. Beherit.
Here we part ways. A tier, A tier album.
I can
Absolutely.
see, being that I've listened to some of your guitar music, I can see you like in Dissection.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
for
you
sure,
try
for
to
sure.
go
This
for
album
like,
is an influence on me for sure. But I can say actually, to counter my own point, if you rate this as a black metal album, then it's not A tier. I don't think it is a black metal album. I think if it's anything, it's somewhere between a heavy metal album and a death metal album. But I think the sophistication of the melodic writing and the part writing is beyond what nearly every other heavy metal band ever bothered to do, except when they wanted to show off, very flourishy moments in a solo, like in the middle of Fast as a Shark by Accept or something. I think they struck upon something that most other bands who call themselves heavy metal never bothered to look into. And in that respect, I know it might annoy some of you. The comparison to Sacramentum that's where the comparison to Sacramentum, I think, is valid. I think you could say something like Far Away from the Sun is a more profound album, but in terms of the quality of the melody writing and the interaction between melodic parts, that's where they can have a valid comparison to Sacramentum. So for me, it's an A tier album. I think the melodies are extremely well written. The songs are not particularly rocky and circular. You could say that they're a little bit disjointed in that it's a little bit riff salady at times, maybe, but I would still say it's an A tier album.
okay, doke, Mr. Shelley.
Yeah, I uh it's difficult to disentangle the quality of the album itself and the judging it as a black metal album. So it's a bit like saying, rate Black Sabbath as a death metal album. Well, it's a bit of the question is, kind of flawed. It doesn't make sense to ask that question. And this, if you take it on its own merits, it's a quality album. Like the first two tracks are, some of the best heavy metal tracks ever written. In terms of like the sophistication of it, the recognizability and memorability of the riffs, and the development of those tracks, and where they build to a place of like finale. But then, yeah, obviously it doesn't hold a candle to black metal because it's trying to do something very different. It's trying to go for a sense of euphoria, a sense of profound, a sense of release, a sense of kind of anthemic coming together. Whereas, a Darkthrone, Immortal, a Burzum were going for something very, very different. So the question is almost a little bit incongruous in a way. Taking the album on its own terms, I would definitely rate it as a strong B, just for the fact that it clearly has its own identity. No one else sounded like Dissection at the time. A lot of bands have tried to sound like Dissection since and have failed on their own terms. And yeah, for that reason, it has stood the test of time. Yeah, Dissection fans are annoying. It's annoying that they keep calling this a black metal album, and it's annoying they call it one of the best black metal albums ever released. But that, that's just noise. That shouldn't sort of deflect from the album that we have before us that we assess on its own terms. And on those terms, it's definitely a strong B, at least for me.
All right, I think it averages out to a B. All right, so Ungod, one of Germany's best black metal bands, isn't saying much. But yeah, it's very average black metal. This is the point in time where 1993 black metal is still, they were still finding the roots. Of course, like the Beherit and the Immortal and Darkthrone and Burzum, they had already kind of fine-tuned their expression. But there's still like a heavy metal influence in the Ungod that you can tell, like a little thrash. And it's very it's more like akin to like South American, black metal at the time. Like I know we're getting the Mystifier. I would rank Mystifier way higher than the Ungod. But yeah, I think it's very average tier territory. Ungod is a band that I did listen to when I was really young, and it did not impress me. And I did revisit it before this episode. I'm like, yeah, it kind of checked the marks here and there on different elements of like proto black metal and all of that. And I don't feel like it's a firm statement, a black metal statement at all. I think it's very average. So yeah, C. Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, I would put this album higher than a C. I think I would give this album a B ranking. It has some very powerful moments. At times, it kind of reminds me almost of the first album by Samael. That might just be the vocals, but somewhat in the riffing as well. Obviously, it has a huge influence from bands like Darkthrone. But they do manage to convey a really powerful sense of conflict and over the sorry. It's a little bit uneven. I will say that the album is a little bit uneven. There's sometimes kind of an almost ear-friendly sense of melody in the song construction, but there is moments of definite change in the narrative that make the album very memorable, and so I think it's actually a pretty strong statement for black metal at the time. I know it was really popular to kind of experiment with aesthetic during this period, at least from what I go back and listen to anyway. And I think this album is actually a pretty solid black metal album or EP, I guess. Is this a full length? Not sure.
It's a full length, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I enjoy listening to them whenever I manage to get around to listening to them, which admittedly is not incredibly often.
Yeah, like I said, there was like a 20-year break in between me listening to them, and because they were on this list, it's like, oh, I need to revisit this band, and yeah, it's still nothing. It does not, amp up my blood or anything. It's just kind of just there. But Beherit, go ahead on the Ungod.
If I've ever heard this album, I don't remember it. So
All right, so C.
apologies to the band, but I just have nothing to say about it.
Yeah, me too. Until I revisit, I'm like, oh yeah, this is just standard fare shit.
No, you still got nothing to say about it.
Yeah, go ahead, Chili.
I'd put it between a B and a C. Well, I hadn't listened to this album in at least 10 years before we did this episode, and I gave it a spin earlier today. And yeah, it's one of these albums where it's like I love this era of black metal, and I love hearing it played well. And insofar as this album does that, I enjoy it a lot, but it doesn't craft like centerpieces around which the tracks are bound, and they kind of that motivate them to a place of like finality or resolution. It's kind of color by numbers or going through the motions really competently. A lot of the riffs do really stand out. A lot of the tracks are constructed really well, but there's no bite, there's no kind of showstopper moment. So yeah, it's between a B and a C for me.
All right, yeah, I'll be generous and put it between a B and a C, but as Bayhawk and I said, is just doesn't stick around in memory banks. There's nothing that really makes us feel compelled to remember this music. But yeah,
Never mind that. What did you just do to Emperor? Where have you placed that?
between an A and a B.
Oh,
Well, I do. Can I preface this before we just was like, why did you put it there, Jason? Most of the songs on the CP, the Emperor EP, is the eponymous EP is on in the Night Side Eclipse, and I feel like that's the album you should listen to, and this one it could just be a cursory glance. Now, if I was to rate Wrath of the Tyrant, I would put that between an S and an A. Because I feel like there's material on Wrath of the Tyrant that didn't make it on in the Night Side Eclipse, like the Moon over Karashiar, or however you pronounce that. I think that's a fucking fantastic song, and really great black metal song. But this is like, why not just listen to In the Night Side Eclipse instead, like of Emperor. Go ahead, Tyler.
Well, two of the songs from the EP are from In the Night Side Eclipse. Two of the songs are from Wrath of the Tyrant. But actually, two of the songs are from Wrath of the Tyrant. But I actually really enjoy this EP. probably like the Enslaved half a little more. Because I think this was released as a split with the Hordanes Land EP by Enslaved. But this album is really interesting to listen to because it has somewhat of a more raw take on the In the Night Side Eclipse tracks than the very reverberated production of In the Night Side Eclipse, which, not to down that record at all, one of my favorite black metal albums of all time. But this one can be really cool to listen to for a different experience, kind of that music, kind of like listening to a live album by Morbid Angel or Deicide can be an interesting experience, and experimenting with texture or tempos in those pieces than what you get on the actual recorded full lengths. So yeah, I think I would actually put this album around A territory.
All right, V.I.T.R.I.O.L.
Yeah, I think it's sitting in about the right place right now. I think in retrospect, having the fact that they've released Nightside after this one, it becomes just a curio for people who really liked Nightside and wanted a few more tracks that sounded like that. The production is not quite as good, but the songs are in the same vein. So it just by the way history went, it's kind of just a very good release, but just a curiosity.
All right, I know Shelly's going to place it in S tier. Go ahead, Shelly.
No, not S tier. Between an S and an A for me. But I take the point that you get a different perspective on the tracks that would later end up on the debut. But for me, that is one of the really special things about it, because it's the thing that really struck me was how it emphasizes things that you might have missed on In the Night Side. As Tyler alluded to, the production on Night Side is very reverby, very kind of murky. So you kind of sometimes miss some of the subtleties, especially around the keyboard work on there. Whereas here, although this is, it's rough as arseholes as far as production is concerned, the keyboards are front and center, so you can hear what they're doing on, say, the finale to I'm the Black Wizards, for example. And also it's slightly slower. So you do get more of a chance to kind of analyze the development, especially with Cosmic Keys as well. And as for the other two tracks, like Night of the Graveless Souls is classic kind of Emperor sort of looking backward, in that, Emperor at this time were the sophisticated black metal band. They were working with quite complex melodies and working out how to layer that with symphonics. And Night of the Graveless Souls is a little backward look to a cheekier time of black metal, and has one of the best little keyboard licks of any black metal track ever. And of course, Wrath of the Tyrants kind of speaks for itself. It's kind of a shame that these two never got the Nightside kind of treatment in a way. But for me, it's kind of, I mean, maybe there is a sense in which my vision is blinkered, because as V.I.T.R.I.O.L mentioned, it's kind of like for the Emperor scholars who want a different perspective on tracks that they really want to know intimately. But for me, kind of these tracks are complex and nuanced enough to kind of warrant that examination. And I think for that reason, it's very, very special. But also, just as an example of formative Norwegian black metal, it ticks all the boxes as far as the feral, raw expression goes, but you also get the hints of what Emperor would become. It's already in their DNA as far as a much more sophisticated symphonic approach that the other bands would not necessarily pursue. So yeah, that's why I place it between an S and an A.
All right, so that averages out to an A. So next up we have the Barathrum, His Majesty at the Swamp. I don't listen to this album often, and I did have to revisit it before this episode. But I like it a lot. I think I should listen to it a little bit more to have like a more formalized opinion. But they take kind of like it's great non-Scandinavian black metal. I think like we were talking about like how we haven't gotten to Mystifier yet, but Beherit's a little bit different. This is really different too, and they kind of have some of the elements that Ungod has, but they do it way better. So Varathron, yeah, it's an A for me, and I do want to cite that I have not spent a lot of time with this album, but when I have listened to it, I have enjoyed it. And I'm not as familiarized with it as I am with like the Immortal and Beherit and all that, but I do like it. I think it's a strong A from what I have heard. My opinion could change as time goes on. So go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, this album is freaking phenomenal. I would put it between an S and an A. One of my favorite albums of all time. Really unique atmosphere. Obviously quite a bit different perspective on atmosphere than as you said, non-Scandinavian black metal. It has an awesome sense of creating very distinctive themes. Like the melodic shape of its themes is really powerful, really distinctive, and really just sticks in your mind. It kind of has an almost plodding, almost kind of semi-groove like rhythm, but they kind of create an almost ambient effect with it that does slightly remind me of Burzum at times. And it's kind of repetitive ratcheting that slowly flowers out from that repeated figure. So you do hear a bit of Celtic Frost influence in some
Yes,
of
yes,
the
that's the main thing too. I think, like when we talk about I mean, Darkthrone has some of the Celtic Frost influence, obviously, but when it comes to non-Scandinavian black metal, there's a shit ton of Celtic Frost in a lot of these different bands, and V.I.T.R.I.O.L is one of those. Go ahead, Tyler.
yeah, in the kind of dark, heavy plotting pacing of a lot of music. But you also get these really beautiful, almost ethereal moments of sweeping melody. It creates a very awesome, kind of exotic, almost fantastical experience. V.I.T.R.I.O.L really nailed it with this one. Don't know if they ever really approached this level of quality songwriting again. But yeah, in conclusion, I would say this is between an S and an A.
All right, excellent, excellent. All right, Beherit. I keep pronouncing the T and H. It's Beherit. You don't pronounce that.
There you go. That'll do.
All right.
I have to agree with everything said so far. I have a soft spot for this album for sure. It's very, very neatly written. If I was to throw any criticism at it, if anyone could throw criticism at it, it would be to say that it's perhaps too neat. It's too simplistic in its themes. But for me, it's almost like a lesson in how to write cohesive songs. Just like Tyler said, like the themes seem to follow. It seems like, although actually I'll back up a little bit. I don't think the riffs almost feel too indistinct to be themes because the songs all sound a little bit like each other. But as the song goes on, each new riff emerges from the previous riff, it sounds like, and it builds towards something. So even though the individual elements are very, very simple, it's just, like I said, very neatly composed music. So again, where it is where I would rank it as well.
All right, excellent, excellent. Mr. Shelley, last guy to talk about the V.I.T.R.I.O.L. Go ahead.
I just realized I was unmuting while I was yelling because my cat was clawing me. Sorry, guys.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, it's that sense of like they write a riff. It's almost too basic, and you kind of think, well, where are they going to take this? And then suddenly they build on it and develop it into a place that's completely unexpected, and you're like, oh, that's really simple but really clever. And that's one of the beautiful things about this album. You've mentioned the Celtic Frost, which is obvious, and there's the classic kind of heavy metal element as well that was very, very important for the Greek style in a way that's entirely distinct from Dissection, in that the Greek style was not euphoric or anthemic in any way. They just borrowed that sense of, let's just focus on very, very traditional melodic development. And you get a bit of Candlemas in there as well at times with some of the slower passages. I mean, this is, if ever was like a blackened doom metal that's kind of like a rebuttal to what Bethlehem were doing, it's this, because the V.I.T.R.I.O.L is very bright and very light music, but not in a obnoxious or kind of trivial way. It's still very weighty and very, very profound, but they managed to create this yeah, I don't know how else to describe it, but there's a very bright sense of like walking into the day kind of tone, but doing it in a way that still has gravitas and has every bit ounce of kind of weight thrown behind it. And yeah, but aside from that and the fact that it is just compositionally so very tight, yeah, definitely between an S and an A, I think I'd agree with Tyler on that one.
All right. So I think that Baytheoc said it was an A, right? Or
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think you got
that's fine.
2 A's and 2 S's and A's.
I'll
So
just do it up a little bit because I don't think I've spent enough time with this album. I think if I listen to it more, I probably rank a little bit higher, honestly, because whenever I do listen to it, there's stuff I like in it. I just think I need to spend more time with it, honestly. Unlike Enslaved, and I really should withdraw my vote on this. So I know a lot of you guys love early Enslaved. It was a band I've never been able to get into. I just listened to Emperor instead, and that was completely my logic. And yeah, it's not part of my upbringing in the black metal is this Enslaved band. I understand they're like 3 years old when they wrote this album, like straight out of the crib and creating black metal with folky, aspects. But yeah, I'm going to withdraw my vote on the Enslaved because if I do position it, it'll skew the results a little too far for you guys. So, Tyler, go ahead. Where would you place this?
Easily an A. Hordanes Land is an awesome, I'd say almost somewhat underrated Enslaved release, even amongst people who have actually some discerning quality with their discernment for quality in their discography. Most people will give the highest rating and talk the most about their debut album. But to me, this record has a lot of the strengths of the debut album, perhaps not quite as much of the development in aesthetic and in production and the use of it as part of the aesthetic, and even a little bit in song development. But this album has really excellent sense of narrative development within it. You could almost call it, and I know this is probably really ironic considering the direction they went in later on, progressive in ways, and really enjoyable listen that, like I said, I think is kind of a somewhat underlooked part of their discography. So yeah, A ranking for me.
All right. Big how would you rank that Enslaved? I've never been able to get into this band. But being that you like more of like the melodic and folky aspects, you probably like Enslaved quite a bit, right?
I do like Enslaved, but I'm not quite sure where I should rank this, if I'm honest. If I was looking at what the other things are ranked at so far, I'd have to go B tier, I guess. I think it's fun and it's I don't know. I feel like these early Enslaved albums sort of embody the dual feeling I have about a lot of metal from this era, or a lot of black metal from this era, in that it's brilliant but also bad at the same time. If that makes any sense. It's like, perhaps the first album embodies that a little bit better. It's repetitive. The playing gets pretty rough, but on the other
They're
hand, you have
kids.
these
They're
weird,
kids when they made them.
yeah. But on the other hand, you have these weird ideas and this atmosphere. So they embody this kind of contradiction, really. And then when they got tighter and better, you can admire on a very superficial level the musicianship, but you're less inclined to want to listen to it. So they're a band that sort of embody a whole bunch of contradictions, really. So I think I would rate it B tier, really. It's a good release, and if you haven't heard it, go and listen to it.
I think I have heard it before, but it's been like 20 years, honestly. I'm old man Jason over here, just wanting to just kiss under that funeral moon. All right, Mr. Shelley, I heard the being that you don't agree with the last statement that was made. Where would you put the enslaved EP?
no, because I wasn't disagreeing. I was more conflicted as well because I'm a champion of the debut. I think it's a perfectly balanced album, and I like it for its repetition and its very, very patient approach to thematic development. Whereas this lacks all of that. It's much more clumsy and it's much more kind of freeform in its approach to composition. But in a way, that's kind of where its charm lies as well. As Havohej kind of said, like, because they were so young, they have ideas in there that just a more experienced musician, it would never occur to them to do, because they would be considered like, you just don't do that, or they're it's compositionally vulgar or something. But here it kind of works. And it's similar to the Emperor EP in a lot of ways, in that the levels are all wrong. You get keyboards that just come out of nowhere that are way too loud. It goes without saying the production is rough, but also just the compositions are like, you can almost tell that they're trying to take it to a place of, no, how can we make this like more ridiculous? How can we up it even further to what we're already doing? And there's a sense in which it doesn't quite come off, but because it's an EP, it's what our friend and colleague Raphael would call preparatory in a lot of ways, and for that you can kind of forgive it its flaws. So yeah, I'd be happy with its current ranking as between an A and a B.
Yep, I figured you would be okay with that. That's why I put it there. All right, so next up is the Sigh. I think Sigh is what Cradle of Filth should have been, Shelley. And the reason why I brought you up is because
I was just thinking that as I was listening to it earlier. I was like, this is what Cradle of Filth should have been. It's
Really?
like we're kissing under the funeral moon right now.
Oh man. All these hormones flying today in that 1993 CE black metal release is ranked. All right. So what I believe this Sigh really succeeds at is the element of keyboards that are factored in here. Of course, you have the goofy Japanese demon, Sighs from Japan, and the goofy Japanese demon here, eating people. And they have weird takes on hell, like the Buddhist hells is more of like learning things, and then you can leave hell after you learn to improve yourself. But it's through torment and all that. So it's really interesting having like a Japanese take on black metal, being that black metal is all about the dark aspects of faith and religion and all that, and anti-humanism and burning in hell and worshiping the devil and all that. Having a Japanese take on that is really cool, especially early on and back in 1993 CE black metal releases ranked. But yeah, I think other than the great utilization of keyboards that are factored in here for the period, at least, like, I don't think they're amazing or anything. I think they were done so much better than how Cradle of Filth implemented keyboards in a black metal. But yeah, there's still it's still kind of confused. It doesn't really know what it is. It was going for black metal, but there's thrashy and all different kinds of influences, and there's the keyboards on top of it. But I do think it's above average. And if you're ever curious, just hear some crazy early black metal, definitely check out that Sigh Scorn Defeat. But yeah, I'm going to place it above average as a B, especially compared to some of the other things that are ranked here. I think a B is a good territory for it. Go ahead, Mr. Tyler.
It would be between a C and a D for me.
Are you fucking serious?
I'm 100% serious. Then again, I should add the caveat that the first time I listened to this album was yesterday in preparation for this episode. So, take what I have to say with that in mind. I was a huge fan of Sigh's later material when I was 13 years old. Now it kind of sounds like Marilyn Manson to me. And that's a point in this album's favor. It does not sound like Marilyn Manson. It's got a lot of heavy metal influences. Clearly, there's some influences from bands like Darkthrone, even some stuff that some people might classify as black metal, but I think is more like a really dark melodic sense of death metal, like what you might hear on Necrophobic's debut album. But overall, the album just doesn't really kind of solidify into like a gestalt for me. It just does it feels a little bit disjointed, and there's no moments that really hit me in the sense of having any great profundity. So wasn't the biggest fan when listening to it.
Well, damn, Tyler, you just rained on my fucking parade. Then I just like talked about this album. It's like, yeah, it's above average. And like, no, it's not, Jason. I'm like, fuck. So here we go. All right, Beherit, all the way from Ireland. What do you think about the Japanese Sigh?
Well, proof again that I didn't do my homework. This is another one that probably passed me by. If I have ever heard it, I don't remember it. I've heard later Sigh, and it sort of embodies the opposite of what I was just saying about Enslaved, in that it's all very well polished, but it doesn't add up to anything that means anything to me. They seem like nice guys, so I hate to be mean, but like I don't know this release, so I can say nothing about it.
All right, I definitely recommend checking it out because like if you can consider like we ranked the early Cradle of Filth. Cradle of Filth came after this, and this does it better than Cradle of Filth did it.
I'll check it out for sure.
Yeah.
Now that you've convinced me it's worth listening to, I'll definitely check it out.
All right, Shelly. I think you're a man on my side on this one. Without
Uh,
kissing under a funeral moon.
Yeah, I think the main guy, I'm going to try and pronounce his name, Mirei Kawashima. I think he is a classically trained pianist. So you do get that as early as this album, but it does definitely comes through on the later albums in that they have that a keyboard player that is way more attuned to how to use keyboards as an instrument rather than just a way to deliver texture. Um, I I actually prefer the follow up to this, Infidel Art, and the reason for that is because Sigh are one of these bands, a little bit like Enslaved and to some extent Cradle of Filth as well, in that they were never that interested in black metal as a pure art form. Um, they were always much more of a chimera of different influences, and that comes across as early as this, in that you get the early black metal influences, you get a bit of Celtic Frost, Samael, Darkthrone as well, but you also get elements of the symphonics, you get a bit of goth in there and horror as well. Later on, that would become way more explicit as they would become more of the sort of avant-garde novelty band. Uh, Infidel Art is where they managed to stay focused for long enough to craft an album that is both a coherent statement of kind of theatrical primitive black metal with those elements of progressive music, but not to the point where it becomes clownish. And later on, that would run away with them. Whereas here on Scorn Defeat, you kind of have the germinal of that, but you can like almost see where it went wrong for them in that it has total lack of focus, but where they do shine is the sheer audacity of what they're doing. And yeah, they just strike me as one of these bands that they get lumped in with the second wave of black metal, and oh yeah, remember Sigh from Japan or whatever, but they never grasped black metal in the same way as some of the more seminal acts did. But I don't think they ever really wanted to. They kind of wanted to use black metal as a canvas for a much more eclectic kind of identity that they were crafting. But I'm still happy with where it's placed right now. I can't fault the album itself. I think it's still a quality sort of slab of very formative black metal, despite what Sigh would later become.
Yeah, but Tyler ranked it so low, so it's a C.
Soz, mate.
Yep. So it's just life, man. It doesn't go the way we want it to go. But like we're saying, the being that I do play piano and keyboards and all that, I understand that the keyboards presented on this album are way better than what Cradle of Filth did. So next up we do have the Rotting Christ. A lot of people say this is their best album. I think it's really great, but like Rotting Christ is, yeah, I'll place it as an A. I'm kind of conflicted with it because I have revisited, randomly throughout the years, and Rotting Christ is one of those bands that, we talk about Greek black metal being like there's a lot of heavy metal influence in it, and uh, but I think it is their best album. Yeah, an A. But when it comes to Rotting Christ, it's more miss than hit for me. And I do view that this album has a good atmosphere and is able to channel a lot of really great metal moments. It may not seem to me as being black metal moments, it may be derived from, just general extreme metal rather than, being 100% black metal. Even though this is really considered like, black metal, but granted, I may be a little biased with Scandinavian and Finnish black metal and kind of like Varathron. I view that as better than the Rotting Christ. So yeah, I'll just rank that as an A, and I'll let you guys talk around this one. All right, Tyler, go ahead.
Many years ago, I made a post or a comment on Facebook, I can't remember which, saying that I preferred Varathron to Rotting Christ. And at the time, I was really young and didn't understand the dangers of the internet, I suppose you can say. And I have my personal number and my Facebook information, and somebody called me and accused me of being an anus troll and said that I was wrong for liking Varathron more than Rotting Christ because Rotting Christ was way better.
A lot of the Rotting Christ just seems like too obvious to me, if that makes sense. Like they take the most obvious approach to writing songs and the way the riffs are constructed. It just seems like a really obvious approach. Whereas you talked about the Varathron, it's like there's things that come out of left field, and that's why I can see why you would rank that higher than the Rotting Christ.
No, I'm totally with you on that one. This is a good album. It has a lot of powerful moments. It creates a really great sensation of that rushing melodic black metal feeling that you expect out of a lot of Hellenic black metal, as it's often called. Definitely has a sense of shaping riffs that almost could sound like they could be on a Judas Priest album into the context of something that is more powerful. So yeah, in that regard, I would say they're a little lesser than Varathron, but it's still a quality black metal album to listen to. You could do a lot worse than Rotting Christ's debut. And if you're just looking for something that maybe isn't the albums that you listen to over and over again, but is still a good, powerful black metal listen, this would be a valid candidate to turn to.
All right, V.I.T.R.I.O.L.
Well, I was going to be a bit trollish and throw the cat among the pigeons, but after that story of Tyler's, I want to distance myself from that a little bit. I do not intend
He's removed from the anus.
He's
Removed
prolapsed from the anus. The anus is prolapsed. We are all prolapsed together. Fuck it, I'll do it. S tier. Thy Mighty Contract is S tier. There we go. I think it's almost like if you were making a character in an RPG, you could take the Varathron album and the Rotting Christ album as being very similar, and then just up, say, the variety of riffs stat a little bit on the Rotting Christ and favor a little bit more the flow, the compositional flow on the Varathron side. But I think it's a strong album. I don't think the riffs are obvious. I think there is similar to the Varathron, a good sense of compositional flow there. Maybe not as good as the Varathron, but it has a little bit more excitement going on. So I think I would rate them both as S tier, quite frankly.
Damn. All right, Shelley.
So I'm going to be the ultimate centrist here in that I agree with Tyler that Varathron are slightly better, but only insofar as I think Varathron have managed to put out more quality material than Rotting Christ. I think that this is the only Rotting Christ album that is worth listening to. I mean, imagine thinking that Non Serviam is S tier, like, yeah. But I think this is, I agree, this is an S tier album. I think it's near perfect in its construction, its composition, its delivery. That comes with the caveat that it's the only thing that Rotting Christ have done that is worth repeated listens. In that after this, they went too heavy into the heavy metal, but also the kind of the trying to create a moment, an anthemic moment, trying to capture that dissection magic of kind of very high melodicism and just completely failing at it. Whereas here, there was like a laser-like focus on using that euphoric high melodicism in a very, very particular way, where it creates like this profound sense of heroism, of just ancient mythology, epic poetry. You really do get the sense of the quest across this album, without like a drop of cheesiness. Like a lot of the heavy metal leaning genres of metal, your power metal and your speed metal and stuff, lean into that sense of the individual hero going on their quest very, very heavily, and it sort of ties in with the sort of whole geek subculture as well. But Rotting Christ kind of outdo all of that here by creating that statement, but in a very, very subtle and found way that kind of gets under your skin, and you can't help but be carried away with, through very, very intuitive approaches to just layering up the guitarists and just very, very simple harmonic material over the top, and then just building to these places of like atmospheric profundity. And it's just a really neat, energetic, outflowing album. And again, much like Drawing Down the Moon, just the converse interpretation to black metal to what Immortal and Burzum were doing. It just presents that alternative universe in fully formed glory. So yeah, S tier all the way for me as well, I think.
Holy shit. All right, so that's between an S and an A, and like I probably have to listen to more V.I.T.R.I.O.L and Rotting Christ after hearing your arguments about that. Because yeah, that's I like when I was young, I was really into Scandinavian shit, and I understand different territories have their different takes on black metal, and all are valid, and they all succeed in different ways. So yeah, real interesting takes on that. However, oh, we have Satyricon. All right, can't stand this band, Shelley. It's all right. I think this one's called Dark Medieval Times, and yeah, it should be thrown back into the Dark Ages.
Well, it's not that bad. Come on, Jason.
I'm gonna rank it as a C. All right.
Oh, okay.
I think my perception is a little skewed because Nemesis Divina is such fucking riff salad nonsense that whenever I listen to Satyricon, that I always like whenever there's like a riff salad moment, it always really stands out to me because Nemesis Divina is just sheer fucking riff salad. But they're more competent here. I don't think they're anything great. And yeah, it's a nothing burger for me. It's very average. I think they definitely took a wrong path into black metal. You see what they're doing nowadays with just having like rock music with black metal aesthetics, and I can totally see them evolving into that because they weren't fully invested into black metal. It's probably just a thing that they did after school, and it's like, oh, just hang out with my friends, create some metal, and show I play guitar and pick up some chicks and all that. That's the kind of vibe. And you look at the video for Nemesis Divina where they have the stripper chick with her tits. I mean, she's wearing clothes but see-through. You kind of get that impression that they just made black metal for the girls. And contrary to your beliefs, Shelley, there are a lot of girls that are into black metal.
I know there are, Jason. You need to meet some of them.
And they like the Darkthrone, and they like the Satyricon. And
maybe it's a Texan thing.
All right. So I'm just going to place it in average territory. Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, it's definitely an average album. To me, this album represents the tragedy of Satyricon that I brought up when we were discussing, what was it? The Shadow Throne, I believe was the title of the record.
Yeah.
Because I think this album is much better than the Shadow Throne. But the tragedy of it is that I think that this album reveals that Satyricon had their hearts in the right place. They understood the spirit of black metal, but they could not themselves project that spirit, couldn't manifest it within their own music. So you get something that sounds like it's almost there, but doesn't hold together enough to be a cohesive black metal statement, even on the level of some albums that I would consider good but not great. And it kind of makes you a little sad. You almost wish, because you can hear some of the sincerity, that they could achieve that. So yeah, in that regard, I would almost be tempted to give it a low C, but I could settle for a C as well.
All right, Beherit.
I'm going to give
Satyricon.
this one an F for flute, for that fucking flute on the
All
second
right,
track or whatever it
I'm
is.
down with
Do
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
jeez.
I'm down with that. I agree.
SNES games have better, melodic.
And while we're at it, yeah, just throw Marduk there enough. And
I think you can
Get
say
ahead of
more.
yourselves.
We'll get it. Marduk's a bit more interesting. I think. I don't. I
Jason
think
really hates Marduk.
I'm not gonna. Well, I'm not gonna say I like this album, Marduk album, but we'll get to that. But I think
there's
I
one riff
disagree
I
about
like off
this.
the entire album, but we'll get to it. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I think I disagree about this being the album which shows that they had a kernel of sincerity about them at the start. I feel the opposite about the first two Satyricon albums. I don't like to be. I feel like I'm too old now to be that emotionally invested in it, to be mean about these things. But I don't feel like this feels like an especially sincere album, and I feel like if you've ever seen the documentary Until the Light Takes Us, there's a moment where Varg is taking the piss out of the newbies who are coming into the shop and going on about, so do you like your cornflakes crispy or soft with Fenris? And I'm pretty sure the guys that they were on about were the Satyricon guys, because they were coming in there and they were being try-hards and they were modeling their music on what everyone else was doing, except, oh, what if we threw a flute in there? It'll be so much different. And it's like, this one for me really does lack the real spirit, and the songs on the first two albums, on all of their albums, really, they were a better rock band than they were a black metal band, because at least they cut the number of riffs down and they produced a standard format song that didn't just bloviate forever.
All right.
That's all I got to say about that, I'm afraid.
All right. Yeah.
That's a documentary where like you get these really interesting interviews with Varg and Fenris, and then just footage of Frost like stabbing a sofa for no reason.
Part was pretty annoying.
Yeah, ironically.
I wish they would have cut that out, because that was really annoying to watch. I was like, man, why do I have to waste my time with this?
All right, Shelly. What do you think about that Satyricon? God, I hate this. I don't even like talking about it. I don't want this on this tier list.
I am gonna be a little bit kinder. I think I prefer the Shadow Throne on an intellectual point of view, because it is compositionally a bit tighter. There's moments where it is boring the tits off me, but it is more focused and it represents a more intimate understanding of what black metal is, in essence, at least. This album, it feels like someone that's listened to black metal as was in 1993 and kind of said, yeah, I can do that. You just sort of throw these elements together. Boom. That's it, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, you've sort of understood the essence of it, but you haven't got to the core of it. If you look at some of the albums in the S and high A tier and compare it to this, where you think that they've taken like very unfocused template and just given it a lick of paint, essentially. And it's enjoyable to listen to, because I love the atmospheres across this album. But yeah, it kind of functions like an Opeth track in a lot of ways, in that they will just break out of like feral blast beat to go into folky acoustic stuff. And there's nothing wrong with every element, but there's nothing connecting it other than the fact that they just think we should throw in a folk element here.
I think the same thing about the Marduk, except that
we'll get. I know you want to shit on Marduk quite soon, but yeah, I'm basically done. Yeah, there's no connecting thread. It's just, here's the elements that make up an atmospheric black metal album with a little bit of like folk flourishes here and there, with no kind of underlying motivation or identity.
Yeah, well, that's what makes it bad. I mean,
yeah.
You remember I said that I would say that it's not as good as albums that I would consider good but not great, which is actually sounds kind of like, like not that much of an insult, but to me it's actually, pretty damning as to their quality. I'd say that about their entire discography. But no, by the sincerity, all I meant was that I should put that a little more in context. They clearly weren't trying to do what Cradle of Filth was trying to do.
Yeah.
They weren't just like, I don't like this music at all, I think it sucks, but I want to make money. I don't think that was their position.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. They were closer to, well, they were closer to the actual musicians they were trying to imitate for a start than Cradle of Filth ever were. But yeah, you're right. They didn't have the naked cynicism of Downy Filth, in that he kind of just wanted to be a t-shirt company with a band on the side. Um, but based on my description, I went in going think I'd rank it as a C, but based on my description, I think I should probably place this as a D.
Yeah, I'm changing my vote to an F. Like a Beherit. I just said C
Yes.
because it just means nothing to me. It's very average fare, but I really don't like this band, and I was just being nice by just kind of saying it's average. But you're right. It's fucking Satyricon. It's F tier. uh, yeah, between a D and a F, I believe that averages out, and I did rank the Absu as a B. The Vitriol album, Barathrum Vitriol. Um, so strange thing about this album, they're considered, of course, one of the main players in the United States black metal in the early days. But if you listen to this album, it's all death metal. It's they have some different elements and kooky things that could pass as black metal, of course, the vocals but the riffs are primarily like Darkthrone, Soulside Journey, and things of that nature. Um, but you have to take in consideration what American black metal was with like the Havohej, which is coming up, and Profanatica, which Lenny would also say that Necropolis is black metal, which oddly enough today, Jorn from Necrovore, and he just sent me a friend request on Facebook, so I might bring him on at some point. Um, but yeah, it's really a solid album for what it is for United States black metal. I do kind of view this as a death metal album. And of course, Absu, they have a lot of thrashy elements later in their discography. This one's really fucking solid. It's definitely above average. But I would not place it, with like the Emperor, things of that nature. I think it hits a lot of the right marks, but not enough of them to be like really exceptional, but definitely above average. Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, this is my favorite Absu album. Might irritate some listeners or even maybe other people participating in the discussion by saying
Yep,
that.
yep.
Um, but yeah, I like this album by Absu the most. I listen to it the most. There are other Absu albums that I think are very good. I think that my second favorite in particular would be the In the Eyes of the Aldanak. I believe is how it's pronounced. EP. Um, but this album is definitely my favorite because it has that kind of dark metal, if you want to invoke the name of a genre that's not really a genre, approach that Darkthrone had on Soulside Journey and Cadaver had on In Pains and Maleficarum had with Across the Heavens. Um, I do think it's weaker than pretty much all three of those albums that I just listed. Um, the riffing is pretty simple and standard for a death metal release. I say that despite the fact that we're rating this in a black metal tier list. I know there's debate about Abzu being black metal, black thrash,
Oh, there's
death
not
metal
any
on this
debate.
record.
Everyone just says they're black metal.
Right.
And American black metal. And no, this really objectively speaking a death metal album with some slight black metal flavorings on
Well,
it.
even Metal Archives has them listed as death metal early, black thrash later. Like it's not. I don't think that's much of a controversial claim.
Huh.
But yeah, it's overall a really good album. In some ways it kind of reminds of um Blasphemy or Impaled Nazarene and its simplicity. Um which can be both a weakness and a strength for this music. But it's really good. It to me, like I said, it's the strongest that Absu has to offer as far as like a unity of vision. And also I'm just kind of partial to that kind of dark metal style. So I would give it probably between a B and an A.
All right, Batiok, Absu. being your music and Beherit really delves in like the Irish folkloric aspects of your land. What do you think about Absu being very like mythological metal?
I don't know if I have really delved that much into the folklore and mythology of Ireland. I think most of my stuff is just about death and misery, which I guess is almost a synonym for Ireland and the weather. But I think the comparison, if anything, to what I do, not to be fucking egotistical or nothing, but the thing that intrigues me about this album is the fact that it's death metal riffs with a black metal atmosphere. Something about that has always kind of tickled something for me. I find that really intriguing. So I do like this album. I don't know if I would rate it very highly. It's not the most listened to Absu album I have, but it is a strong album. It's an interesting album. So I guess B is where it should be.
All right, Mr. Shelley.
Yeah, I guess if they'd released this in like 1990, uh, as a sort of early blackened death metal thing, along with like the death metal of the Norwegian bands, your Thou Shalt Suffer, sorry, I've had a few glasses of wine. Thou Shalt Suffer, um, and Old Funeral, and as Tyler mentioned, Cadaver, and yeah, even like your Tormentor, and you mentioned Necropolis, and like the early American bands, Profanatica and Von. 1993 was maybe a little bit too late to come out with an album like this, in that it kind of death metal had already had its heyday, black metal was already in full swing, and this album is still sort of straddling the line, and it feels a little bit like it's late to the party in that regard. And I guess the reason I always overlook it is because I do go to Absu for the galloping black and thrash of the next album. Well, actually, all of their albums throughout the 90s, which just just that little bit more special for me. This one seems a little bit confused as to what it is. And I understand. I think some of this material was written earlier, but they never got around to releasing it until '93 because of various lineup changes. And Prescriptor was a little bit late to the day, and that most of the material was already written by the time he joined, and he kind of brought his own identity and thematic material to the table, and kind of took Absu in his own, made Absu in his own image, as it were. So that being said, there's nothing wrong with the album inherently, but I think those elements kind of take away from it a little bit for me. I'd rank it as a strong B, because there's nothing wrong with it, but I always kind of pass it over in favor of just later Absu albums, or full-blooded black metal by this point, or full-blooded death metal, I would say.
All right. I agree with that. So next up we have Graveland in the Glare Burning Churches. This is arguably a demo, but a lot of people say it's full length because the length of it is long, and it's also been released as a full length later on by various record labels. But in the Glare Burning Churches, I think it's a very curious album, because Graveland would refine a lot of the aspects that are on this album, but you have the Conan shit, you have the raw black metal aggression, and everything is really tight. And the production's shit, of course, but I just love this album, or demo, or whatever you want to call it, and I love early Graveland, and I can't see it being beneath an A. I understand that Rob Darkin is a controversial figure, but we're talking solely about the music, and we have Burzum on here too. So who gives a shit? Like the music's good. Listen to it. Fuck the politics and what people say you can and cannot listen to. So this is a strong A from Jason. Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, this is from my favorite period of Graveland. It's just really hits all of my sensibilities with music that I like, and that it's just a raw stream of sound. You have sort of these stamping power chords that are stripped together with flowing streams of chords that are almost like a liquid sense of melody. There's no other really accentuation to that. It just is the shape of melody changing throughout the course of a song. It both hits on moments of raw aggression that creates a sense of battle, that leads you to these kind of transcendent overlooking moments. One of my favorite albums, I listen to the early Graveland discography all of the time, like this on up through probably Thousand Swords, is a very frequent listen for me. This album is just an excellent raw black metal album, much in some ways like listening to Darkthrone's Under a Funeral Moon, maybe even some aspects of Emperor in there. Very quality release.
Hey, Tyler,
What's that?
what if we kissed in the glare of burning churches?
I think I would like that more than Kissing Under a Funeral Moon.
I'm joking. Go ahead.
But anyway, I would put it maybe between an S and an A, or at the very least an A. So,
All right, Bethiok, what are your thoughts on that Graveland?
I suppose I'm letting myself down again here. I don't know this release all that well. I've heard it maybe the odd time. I pick up with Graveland at Celtic Winter, really, which I think is, you could argue, is an S tier record. I think Graveland's early releases are it's another band that went on a tear, really. But I don't know this demo very well, so I can't really comment too much. So,
all right, so
perhaps in place of Celtic Winter, you can give
I'll just hijack your vote and say it's an A2. So Shelley,
Good, man.
So, listening to some of these releases in preparation for this episode was a real trip down memory lane, because I've not listened to this demo for many, many years. I've maybe even 15 years. So it was really great to kind of go back to it, because I've become a bit too preoccupied with later Graveland in terms of just, as a point of study rather than the fact that I enjoy it in particular. Graveland has always been one of these bands that I really, really like in principle, but have always kind of missed the mark in terms of really standing out as profound black metal. Here you kind of get as Tyler's already kind of explained at length, like the very primitive, very raw, very, very focused Graveland that's kind of the direct inheritor of mid-80s Bathory in a lot of ways, and kind of you can see the continuity between the first wave of black metal and the second wave through the lens of early Graveland here. And for that reason, it's really fascinating for a historian of black metal. I'd say on an emotive or spiritual level, it doesn't quite chime with me as much as some of the releases that are currently sat on its level. So I don't think I can, in good conscience, rank it quite as highly as this. Maybe between an A and a B, but
all right,
it's sort of like
averages out as an A. All right, thank you,
yeah.
Sean. How about that Havohej dethroning the Son of God? It's another classic too. I mean, I'll place that an A. Come on, the aesthetic, the sheer primitive nature of the Havohej. He thought Profanatica was simplistic. Listen to the Havohej. But yeah, like we compared to Beherit, Beherit is way better. But sorry, Lenny, for listening to this. But yeah, it's an A for me. I love how blatantly blasphemous it is. It's over the top. It's straight to the point. There's nothing artistic about it. That's probably why it's very like if you talk about like postmodern music, this is postmodern music in the extreme. Yeah, it's really a middle finger to everything and everyone, especially Christianity as the main target. But yeah, it's an A from Jason. Tyler, go ahead.
Havohej, another me born to serve. But yeah, this album is absolutely phenomenal. One of my favorite albums of all time. Arguably listen to it more than some Profanatica material. Because I mean, Profanatica, as far as truly excellent albums to me, they have Profanititas de Dominatia, and then their early demos are pretty solid. And I mean, a lot of this material was intended to be Profanatica material, just because of various reasons they couldn't release it. And there's all sorts of drama there. It ended up getting released as a Havohej record, so it could still be out there. But yeah, Havohej really accomplishes an artistic vision of almost repulsive blasphemy, and that really comes through in the music here. You have soaring, raw, kind of elements of riffing over sort of kind of a repetitive ambient drumming, almost in some ways, maybe not in the style of melody similar to Bathory, with this kind of radical opposition and conflict that is achieved in the music that I think kind of speaks to the theme of, as Jason said, being against everything and everyone. And to that, I think they have a lot to be credited for. So yeah, I think that this album would be like the Graveland album. I would say almost between an S and an A, or at the very least an A.
All right, Beherit, have you ever listened to that Ledney going solo doing the Havohej? And I mean, lately, like he's done some more Havohej stuff. I say Havohej, that's how my brain wants to pronounce it. Tyler may be more correct. It's Jehovah spelled backwards. But he's gone more for like a super dark ambient blasphemous type of texture. Compared to what this album is, Dethrone the Son of God, with just creating like really barbaric, simplistic, blasphemous, blackened death metal, essentially. Very, stripped down. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's fucking A tier. What else can you say?
All right. I mean, I can't say even more.
There's not much to say. It says it all for you.
I mean, he does have blood on his face painted there, staring down at his hands, like, what have I done in this field? We could say many more things about it. Shelly, go ahead and say a couple more things.
Well, yeah, can we just say probably one of the best album covers ever? Yeah, basically that's it. I love the immediacy of it. It's raw and it's very, very primitive, but not in the sense of like what the Norwegians were doing, in that they were trying to create distance between themselves and the listener through the lo-fi production. This sense of kind of obscurantist fanatical naturalism, whereas Havohej, because of their lyrical preoccupations, which were way more obviously theological based rather than based in naturalism, they were also way more aggressive and almost like a descendant of punk in that regard, in that they wanted to place no barrier between themselves and the listener, just the raw expression of energy and aggression coming through, completely undiluted into the listener's ear. And that's what I love about this album, is it's so just fucking naked in its absolute abhorrence for everything, and it doesn't want anything to get in the way of delivering that message into the listener. And yeah, easily an A tier for me, absolutely.
All right, so that falls straight into the nay. You got an A, Paul Ledney. Congratulations. You passed algebra. Yep, just going to move that Impaled Nazarene into the
Controversial.
I fucking love this album. This is my favorite Impaled Nazarene. I know the Nors album is, a lot of people say that's the best. I just fucking love Ugra-Karma. This is my favorite Impaled Nazarene album ever. And I think it's a great contradiction to like how Scandinavian black metal tried to make it more artsy. This is like a grindcore turned into black metal, and really just very violent, just firm statements, boom, 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 there you go. And everything is top notch. The riffs are fucking top notch. The fucking percussion, everything is just speeding along through. And you listen to it and like all of a sudden you're already halfway through the album because it just goes that fast. It's that fucking bombastic. And I love every aspect of it. The atmosphere is great. The I think it's true Finnish black metal. You have the Beherit, which is the simplistic side, it's very intuitive, and then you have the sheer violence side, which is Impaled Nazarene, and both are S tiers in my opinion. Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, this is also my favorite album by Impaled Nazarene. I think that it is a very fine demonstration of just pure rage. In some ways it appeals to my taste in also being very straight ahead stream of melody. But in the midst of all of that rage, you also see it flower into moments of almost beauty and sort of sensitivity and appreciation for existence that can only come from an incredibly violent mindset. Something that I kind of almost in a certain ways, although maybe through different means, reminds me of Burzum at times. So yeah, I would also put this record. Yeah, I would think I would also give it an S tier. One of the finest expressions of black metal ever made.
Yeah, and we talk about like Scandinavian black metal and the style. Finland is right there next to Norway and Sweden. So I kind of also kind of consider them a little Scandinavian because they're in the backyard of Scandinavia, but it's a completely different take on black metal than what the Scandinavians were doing. And it's fucking phenomenal. I love this album. Like if I want to, just listen to some black metal while I'm having some beers. I'll put on the Impaled Nazarene or the Beherit or the Burzum, and it all has a similar effect on me, even though they're all completely different takes on black metal. Bethiok, go ahead. What are your thoughts on that Impaled Nazarene?
I
Ugra.
love this album too. I love this album. Sheer stupid violence, just the very essence of a drunken Finn. It's brilliant. It's again another
Did
one
you
of those
know
albums that doesn't
alcoholism is
speak
a national disease in Finland?
national sport or national disease.
It's the national disease. Yeah.
It's the national sport of Ireland. It's the disease of Finland.
I can see that. Yeah. How popular is Jameson there in the Midland?
How popular is Jameson in Ireland?
Yeah.
It's a cheap drink. I mean, it's as popular as any cheap drink. It depends where you go,
Everyone always says like really good, Irish whiskey here in the States is Jameson, but
No. It's pish basically. It's cheap pish.
well,
Jameson's not good Irish
I,
whiskey. To be honest,
I
Scottish
do have
whiskey
a
is better than Irish whiskey, but there are far better Irish whiskeys than Jameson.
Yeah, I would agree. I've had better Irish whiskeys than Jameson. Jameson is just advertising. It's not that good.
I don't like
Yeah.
Guinness either. I like Texas beer more than Guinness, but
I
but
disavow all alcohol anyway, so I don't support Guinness either.
all right. So is that an S tier from you, Bethiok, for the
For
Imperial
sure.
Culture?
Certainly.
All right, there's 3 yeses. Shelley, are you the dissenter today on the Impaled Nazarene?
Yes, I am. I adore this album as well. I think it is an outrageous statement of theatric aggression, and I absolutely love it again in a similar way to Drawing Down the Moon for creating a converse interpretation of what black metal could or should be to what the Norwegians were. But God is Todd exists on there, and it completely cuts the flow of the album. And elements of the second half that don't quite flow as well. If we were to take, say, the first 5 tracks, this would be absolutely S tier for me. But I think they don't quite maintain the momentum for the full course of the album. Not to say that there isn't quality work within the second half, but I can't, in good conscience, rank this as an S. So I think I'm going to have to place this as an A. But I was kind of surprised in that I didn't expect all of you to go for an S. So I thought I'd be having to talk this up because I thought I was going to be the one that absolutely loves this album and was trying to talk you guys into it. But
All right, Shelley, you
turns
can
out
talk
I'm
up
the
the
critique.
Necromantia because I'm rating that as a B. So you can talk that up.
Right.
You're like, I don't care, Jason. Just do whatever. All right. Yeah, Necromantia. I tried to revisit this band over and over and over. Just does nothing for me. I understand like there's, it's like proto black metal in my opinion. I understand you have the Hellenic side, which is really enmeshed in the like heavy metal and all that. Necromantia I just view as not like Dissection. I think it's more black metal and heavy metal, but you definitely have the strong heavy metal aspect in it. Something I do think it's above average. Like it doesn't offend me when I listen to it, as a lot of average bands do. So yeah, I'll place it strongly as a B. Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, Necromantia. I think I prefer the album. I believe it's right after this, Scarlet Evil Witching Black. I remember really disliking this album, and then I went and listened to it again in preparation for the podcast, and it was better than I remembered it being. Still prefer the album afterwards. Necromantia is almost a more weird, gothic, bizarre space rock than it is black metal in some ways. And in that, I would consider it kind of a downgrade in their favor. But it is really entertaining to listen to. I do turn on Scarlet Evil Witching Black, or however you say it, from time to time, and it's enjoyable to listen to. They do have a good flair for the dramatic that maybe is a bit more closer to Judas Priest or Black Sabbath than it is to the best of black metal. But that being said, in the overall canon of black metal, I wouldn't necessarily say that they were a great band, so I would also give them a B.
All right, so my friend Sebastian Mitra, he was the editor of deathmetal.org before the Anus people took it over. This is one of his classics, and that's why I ranked it a B and not a C. Is I understand that he's really heady and really into the finer nuances of extreme metal, and that he would consider this so high. It's like I listened to it and it's competent. I mean, I would place it, above the Sigh, which Sigh is in C territory. This would be in B territory. But how he ranked it as, like a timeless classic, which on this tier list would be an S tier. I don't comprehend. It's just, it must be something nostalgic for him or something like that. But Beherit, have you heard the Necromantia?
I think I have to rank this one a C, partly because I haven't given anything a C yet, I don't think, but also because of those three big ones from Greece of this period, two of which we've already covered, this album doesn't really attract me to listening to it again and again. So some interesting ideas. I would have preferred the raw production on Scarlet Evil Witching Black, or Scarlet Black Witching Evil, whichever, Scarlet something album. But the songwriting is better on that follow-up album. So I just have to give this a C.
All right. Shelley.
So I'm going to be the Necromantia hipster here and say the split EP they did before this with Barathrum, Black Hearts Lead to Everlasting Sins, is the superior Necromantia work. And when they were set loose on a full length with Crossing the Fiery Path, they did become a little bit unfocused and disjointed. So the thing that made them sort of then novelty, I guess, if you want to call it that, was the fact that they didn't have a rim guitar. They played 6-string bass, and also they used saxophone liberally. And when you kind of say that on paper, you think, oh, God, really? But it works really well in terms of the fact that they don't let it become just a stupid crutch that they lean on to be wacky. They do get this occult, horror-themed, outrageously kind of, silly, but in a good way, black metal across without being too obnoxious with their kind of, quirkiness or whatever, but it still remains a little bit unfocused and a little bit meandering at times. I'd probably put it between a B and a C because I still think it is very high quality. But yeah, in terms of the other two Greek acts we've got on here, it doesn't quite compare for me. The debut EP definitely, but not this work.
All right, the people have spoken, and the people have said that it's not that good. I'm sorry, Sebastian. Sebastian has a PhD in Egyptology and astronomy. His master's was in astronomy and his PhD is in Egyptology. Yeah, he liked the Necromantia. I love it, Sebastian, if you're listening, which you're probably not. A funny story some other time, but yeah, I did rank that Marduk into the F territory. There is one fucking riff I like, and it's on the song On Darkened Wings, and it's just a bass little melody. It's like, oh, that's fucking catchy. Yeah, that was fucking nice little riff. But the rest of the album, this is like the generic and they go for the melodic style of black metal that bands like Enthroned would later do, and just it's just nothingness to me. But yeah, the Marduk, those of the Unlight, is a strong F from Jason, even though I like one melody, but the way it's positioned in the song, it's like completely disconnected from what they built up. And it's like, oh yeah, we have this bass, melody that we're gonna do, and it doesn't make any sense at all. That's a nice melody, but it just conveys absolutely nothing at all. So strong F from Jason. Those of the Unlight by Marduk. Tyler, go ahead.
Marduk is boring. The best they got was okay on Opus Nocturne, in my opinion. Everything else, you're not missing anything by not listening to it. So yeah, I would give this an F. Yeah, an F.
They have one good melody on this album, and within the context of the album, it makes no sense of having that one melody. That's good. All right, Beherit. What are your thoughts on that Marduk?
I wouldn't give it an F because I gave the Satyricon an F, but a D. Let's go for a D.
All
I think
right.
they write enjoyable riffs, good riffs. I don't know, should you say enjoyable about black metal? They write grim and frostbitten riffs, and but they forget to write songs. They just don't lead anywhere. Which
Well,
is
they go for this kind of like cookie cutter melodicism, like I said, like Enthroned does, and a lot of like the second rate bands do that style where it conveys nothing. They're just hitting melodic chords, and it just
they do, but a lot of those bands are copying Marduk. I think, if
I
anything,
don't
maybe.
think they're copying Marduk. I think Marduk's copying other bands.
Well, I think a better version of Marduk would be the Pure Holocaust, which we rated earlier.
Yeah, Marduk is imitating other bands, but also Marduk arguably had a huge part to play in developing what we call Norse core.
All right, Shelley.
So I really like Opus Nocturne, and I think that their debut Dark Endless has its charm, but I totally agree with Beherit's take that they do write riffs, but they forget to write songs, in that it is just a collection of riffs where it's kind of like listening to someone tell you a story through the medium of, wouldn't it be cool if this happened? Wouldn't it be cool if that happened? And it's like there's no, well, knit it together into a narrative, then make it happen. Show me the story that you're trying to craft here. And that's kind of what this era of Marduk is a little bit like. I think they nailed it on Opus Nocturne, and the fact that this artist are kind of reviled by knowing black metal fans now shouldn't take away from the quality of that album. Here you kind of get the worst of both worlds, in that the quirkiness of the debut is stripped back, but the focus of Opus Nocturne is completely missing. So yeah, I'd probably rank it a D. I'd be a lot kinder to it than you guys are. But that's not to say that I rate Marduk as an artist as a whole. I do take the point that they are one of the artists that's chiefly responsible for the dumbing down of black metal. But this album, it's harmless.
They just said it. They're responsible for dumbing down black metal. So
Yeah, but not this album. This album is just them finding their voice. It's completely serviceable as a black metal album. It's nothing special, but it's not, it's not as harmful as, say, Dark Medieval Times.
all right, are you bracing yourself, Shelley?
What do you mean?
Because I'm gonna do, you know how I do the cadences of syllables when I do vocalizations. You're gonna get a good one here. Mystifier, Göetia. Fucking A. This is like Brazil's best black metal album. I love, like, you have like the primitive barbarism, which is, the South American take on black metal. This is like the highest peak of that, in my opinion. You take aspects of Sarcophago and some just like general elements of black metal, you put them into like a blender, but you put them together, and it's a fine fucking wine. It's not like salad or anything like that. It's a fucking good concoction full of a lot of great blasphemous elements. I think Mystifier fucking knocked it out of the park with this album. It's a strong A from Jason. And I think it's one of the best South American albums ever released. Go ahead, Tyler.
I'd hate to kind of deviate from you on this one, but you think I would like it a lot more than I do because I love Sarcophago, I love Beherit. I love that kind of straight ahead style. Morbid Visions, as I frequently said, is one of my is possibly my favorite death metal record of all time. Um, um, but yeah, what was it? The record just didn't really hit as hard as those ones for me. It wasn't bad. It was actually pretty awesome in many ways. But I don't know if I would rate it as highly as you did. I would probably give it a B.
Hmm. Dude, this is like pure Latin American fucking blasphemy. All right, V.I.T.R.I.O.L, go ahead.
Another one I don't know.
All right, so you're withdrawing your vote?
Yep.
Okay, Shelley.
Oh, I hate to disappoint you, Jason, but I'd probably rank this as a B as well.
Oh,
It's a
fuck.
fine, no, it's a fine album, and it ticks a lot of the boxes again on paper that I really do rate about non-Nordic black metal. Absolutely adore that style, but this one didn't. It just didn't quite jump off the page for me. B is still like, look at the other albums in the B territory that we already have. Like it's still like an album that I return to quite frequently, but it's just not quite cracking in the same way as some of the A tier is.
Okie doke, okie doke. So next up is that Blasphemy.
Mhm.
Gods of War, not the Fallen Angel of Doom. Usually when we talk about Blasphemy, it's about Fallen Angel of Doom.
Oh, they released a second album, right?
Yeah, it's not Fallen Angel of Doom. So yeah, it's Blasphemy kind of dialing it in and running off their legacy that they had at the time and still have today. Gods of War is very average territory for compared to Fallen Angel of Doom. Yeah, so I place it as a C. Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, Blasphemy is a weird band for me because they are very good at what they do. But as much as I, in the abstract, think Blasphemy is a really good black metal band of a very particular style that they kind of, in some senses, pioneered, although they clearly have influences from grindcore and groups like Sarcophago. Um, I don't ever listen to them that much, and when I try to listen to them, I oftentimes turn off the album about halfway through, not out of disgust or anything, just like, okay, I'm about done with this. um they there If there's other options that kind of go for that simplistic style where the narrative is more across the entire album and you kind of get little perspectives into an overall human condition across the course of an album, you have other options like Beherit, or even some grindcore albums like Carbonized for the Security or Terrorize or World Downfall, or an album or a group that I oftentimes kind of compare to Blasphemy, but like more Blood, as weird as that sounds, on albums like Impulse to Destroy. I usually prefer those. So as much as I'd hate to say it, I would probably also put Blasphemy around a C.
All right, Bayhiok.
I have very little to say about Blasphemy. It's a band that I've heard, but never stuck with me. Similar to Tyler, I'd rather listen to Blood or Terrorizer or something like that. So Blasphemy's just never stuck with me. But
Fucking Fallen Angel of Doom's a fucking classic, so definitely check that out. And one of my favorite bestial war metal songs, or if you want to call them that, like Blasphemy is like the forerunner of that style. And of course, you have the sarcophago, Beherit, and all that, but Blasphemy is what a lot of the war metal crowd try to emulate. It's fucking demoniac. I fucking love that song. There's so much classics off of Fallen Angel of Doom, but this is not that album. Go ahead, Shelley.
Well, yeah, I think I agree. Like Fallen Angel of Doom is another example of like uh archetypical non-Nordic black metal. And it's one of the most influential albums in the canon after like the Darkthrone stuff. If you just pound for pound the number of bands that imitate Blasphemy. Not to say that they did anything interesting with it. I don't think that war metal is a particularly interesting form of music, but you can't argue with the fact that Blasphemy tapped into something there that was just not something that was very much explored by the Norwegian or Swedish or Finnish set, except for Beherit maybe. And yeah, this album is like a cleaned up version of Fallen Angel of Doom, which if there's one thing you shouldn't do to the Blasphemy sound is clean it up, because that takes away from the barbaric, primitive, feral charm of what Blasphemy are all about. And here you kind of get a hint of that, a shadow of that, but mostly boredom, I think, would be the overarching kind of lasting impression. So yeah, but it's still Blasphemy, and it's still like there's still an echo of what made them so special on the first album. So yeah, I'd be happy with a C as well.
All right, unanimous C. All right, that wraps up today's fucking tier list. Hopefully it didn't piss you off too much. If it did, then
I hope it did. I hope it pissed you off.
All right, life sucks, and we just deal with it and all that, and good times, and good beers were had, good conversations. I'm just going to go into typical order. Tyler, thank you for joining today, and always great to have your nerdy inputs.
No problem, man. I wear the title of nerd as a badge of honor. There's a few people out there that I hope this pissed off. Won't say any names, but I'm sure we'll hear from them.
Okay, we'll hear from them. Okay, I'm waiting for that. All right, V.I.T.R.I.O.L, sorry for calling you a leprechaun, but you said it was okay that I called you a leprechaun, and also sorry for saying that you're an IRA. I was thinking of someone else, and all the mix get mixed up in my head, and I forget which is which. So,
as an English guy, it's like the two most offensive things you could say to an Irish person if you've just done right there.
Okay. V.I.T.R.I.O.L, thank you for coming on.
Your pronunciation of the name has gone backwards. You got it right at one point. It's what can I say?
V.I.T.R.I.O.L.
It doesn't sound great in the Valley Girl accent anyway. So
Jason is being so American right now. He's just being very typical American.
You're grand. It's all good. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Thank you for joining, and of course, thank you, Mr. Shelley, for being part of the driving force of this podcast. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And leave some comments. I definitely don't care about your opinion.
Like, subscribe, hit the bell. If you're listening on that Spotify, look at the YouTube and see what we have created from all these black metal releases. Thank you for listening, and cheers from Texas.